So hello and welcome to our very first Year 9 virtual options event. Ordinarily we'd be getting into school right now with yourselves, parents, carers and Year 9 students, and we'd be talking to you about the options that you've got available going into Year 10 and Year 11. We started the process off before Christmas. I know that many of you spent some time with Mr McIntyre prior to the lockdown that we're in now. We didn't want you to miss out on any of the information though that we would have given you had you been here in school. So we're going to do this instead. We're going to create a number of different resources for you and put them up online for you to be able to look at. Now we're doing this in school. I'm not talking to you live obviously, I'm talking to a camera and there might be some noises around because school's open right now for some students and for some members of staff as well. So forgive me if there's any background noises. But we're going to go through the slides that I would ordinarily have shown you had you been here. Now, options sounds great. It sounds like you've got loads of choice, and you do have some choice, but I'm going to start off by talking about the things that you don't actually get a choice over. These are the things that everybody going into Year 10 and Year 11 have to study, and this gives you a broad foundation on which to build. So everybody has to carry on with English, both language and literature. So that's 2 separate GCSEs there. Everybody has to do maths and everybody does science. Now the type of science you do depends on the group you're in, depends on your interests, it depends on your future aspirations, it depends on whether or not dual science or triple science are the best options for you. And we'll be talking you through what those mean, and your science teachers will be able to help you with this as well. But both of them lead to GCSEs. One leads to 2 GCSEs in science, and the triple leads to 3 separate GCSEs in science. All of them study chemistry, physics and biology, and all of them are science GCSEs. But everybody does sciences. Everybody does core PE. Now that's the PE that doesn't lead to an exam, it doesn't lead to a qualification. It's the PE that you've been doing up until now in Year 7, 8 and 9. So everybody does that, regardless of what other options that they choose to do. Everybody has to do religious education or religious studies. Now in this school, we combine that with citizenship, and you'll do a series of lessons around citizenship and RE, and we include much of PSHE in that as well. So other schools might refer to it as PHE or PSHE. That's what we do, and that's what everybody does as well across the country. So a few of you will end up doing personal development and employability skills as well, because we will adapt your timetable, your curriculum to better suit you. So just a few students will end up doing PDE as well. More on that later for those of you who will be involved in that particular element of the curriculum. You might have heard talk about English Baccalaureate, or EBAC as it's sometimes referred to. There was a lot in the press about this a few years ago when it was first brought in, and there was some confusion about it. It's still with us today, and it's important that you understand what it means. So the EBAC was dreamed up by the government at the time, and they made the decision that actually a suite of subjects, a small number of subjects, were going to be considered as the EBAC suite. This is a suite of subjects that they believe to be an academic suite of subjects that they believe to give every young person in this country a good academic foundation. Now the EBAC stands for the subjects that you see here on the screen. Now to get the EBAC, you need to have a grade 5 or better, and we'll come to the grades in a little while, but a grade 5 or better in the subjects that you see here on the screen. So English and maths, at least 2 sciences. Remember I said earlier about dual science and triple science, so you get at least 2 sciences, grade 5 or better. History or geography, not both, and RE for some reason is never counted in the EBAC, and a modern foreign language. So more on this later on, particularly when Mr McIntyre does his presentation. Now, what's an EBAC? Well, you don't get a separate certificate in an EBAC. You don't get it as a separate qualification as such. And whilst some of the universities in the country are looking at it favourably, none of them need you to have it. None of them are insisting on you having it. We don't as a school insist on all of our students studying the EBacc suite of subjects. We don't insist on everybody that's on a certain pathway doing it either. We do ask you to take one of the EBacc subjects, and we'll come back to that as one of your options, but we don't promote the EBacc for everybody, because what we like to do is make your curriculum as relevant to you as we possibly can. Now, within limitations, obviously, we haven't got the resources where we could make a bespoke curriculum, an individualised curriculum for every single one of you. But what we try to do as best we can, create a curriculum that works for you. Now, for some of you, choosing subjects that will allow you to get the EBacc suite of subjects, it's exactly the right thing for you. And you're more than capable of doing it, and you'll be supported to do that, and you'll achieve it, no doubt. For others, it's not as important, and therefore we won't be forcing anybody into it either. Schools get judged on the percentage of students that do the EBacc successfully, but it's not a judgment that we've ever paid a lot of attention to, and we would much rather make this personal to you rather than try to hit a statistic that we get judged upon, not you. Now, GCSEs changed quite considerably, probably about 5 years ago now. So some of the things I'll talk about next, you might already know, you might be really familiar with, but I know that some of you are my age or maybe slightly younger, and when we went to school, it wasn't like this. And we were used to seeing O-level grades, GCSE grades, A, B, C, D, and so on. That's changed, as has the content of GCSEs. So a few years ago, they brought in what they call the reformed GCSEs, and those are the GCSEs that Year 9 this year will go on to study when they're in Year 10 and Year 11 in the years ahead. So what is it? Well, as you can see on the screen now, there's a greater emphasis in the reformed GCSEs on examinations. They've removed a lot of the coursework elements that had built up during the course of the GCSEs. They've taken that out, and they put more emphasis on an exam at the end. Also, they took out some of the options that some subjects had for foundation entry and higher entry. That was based on the difficulty of the paper. Now, some have still got it. So as you can see on the screen, maths, science, and modern foreign languages have got GCSEs where you can be entered for foundation or you can be entered for higher. Foundation entry allows you to access only a certain number of the grades. Higher entry gives you access to the full range of grades. Now, we will work with you in order to enter you at the right level for you if you choose MFL and when you are doing maths and when you are doing science. Now, as I said earlier, we were used to A's, B's, C's for GCSEs, and we got our heads around those for a number of years. That changed a few years ago when they moved to a numbers-based system, and I'm going to show you a little bit about how those numbers actually work. Now, the younger people who are watching this probably realise this already, and you've got your heads around it, but dinosaurs such as myself, it took a bit of time to get our heads around it, so we're going to have to remind ourselves about what the numbers mean today as well. GCSEs get graded in numbers. Some of the qualifications that we offer that you might choose to do are vocational qualifications. They count the same as GCSEs, but they're graded slightly differently. They're assessed slightly differently as well, and we'll talk about that later on too. But they are graded with distinctions, distinction down to pass level. Now, they're also levelled at level 1 and level 2. A level 2 is a higher grade GCSE. A level 1 is a lower grade GCSE. It counts as a slightly lower grade GCSE. But you'll see that we offer level 1 and level 2 vocational qualifications and pure GCSE qualifications for you. And that's because you're all different. We've got a cohort of Year 9s, as we do every year, with a wide range of abilities, a wide range of goals and interests. And it's important that our offer reflects that. So here's the numbers. The slide you're looking at now shows you what the numbers mean in terms of the old grades. And you can see that they introduced a 9-point system, with a grade 9 being, I guess, what you would possibly call an A star star. So the very highest of the A stars now get grade 9. Grade 8 is equivalent to the old A star. So 8s and 9s would be the old A stars that you were used to seeing. A 7 is equivalent to an old grade A. And then as you can see how the numbers relate to one another. So a 6 would be a B. Now a 5 and a 4, there's a bit of an overlap there. So a 5 is a really good grade C and lower grade B. So it borders the grade C, grade B, as was the case in the old GCSEs. And a grade 4 is a standard pass, is a good grade C. Then you've got grades 3, 2 and 1 and down to U. U stands for ungraded. Of course, that won't affect any of you, so we're not going to spend any time talking about U's. But grade 1, equivalent to a G, 2, equivalent to an F, grade 3, D, E kind of area, and then 4, 5 and so on. Now, there's a dotted line going across between grade 4 and 3, and that's because the government and some employers and some universities and colleges make a distinction between a GCSE grade 4 and higher and a GCSE lower than a 4. So some of the courses that you'll look to get on, some of the jobs that you'll look to achieve will need you to give the number of grade 4s or better that you got and in which subjects. So that's why the dotted line is there. There's also a distinction drawn between a grade 4 and a 5, and some courses will require you to get a grade 5 or better, so a strong pass as opposed to a standard pass. This type of terminology will become more and more familiar with you to you over the next couple of years. So I talked earlier about how things are assessed, how different courses are assessed, and that's really important when you consider what it is you want to do. Because how you get tested and how your grade is developed is important, because some of you will be sitting there now thinking, actually, I'm pretty decent at tests and exams, I'm pretty good at that, I like that. Others of you will be thinking, I don't like exams, and I'd prefer to have coursework where I've got time to redo it and to do it over a period of time. Others of you will be thinking, actually, I'm pretty good at practicals, and if I could get graded on my practical ability, that would do me a power of good. Whereas others of you are probably thinking, actually, I'm not great at practicals and I prefer the theory side. So you'll be glad to hear that all of the courses do give some variation in how they are assessed and how your grade is given by the end of it. So you can see on the screen now that in general, regardless of the course you do, the exam length, the length of the actual exam has increased with the reformed GCSEs, and some of them, as you can see, are up to 3.5 hours long in terms of the exams. Now that's a substantial amount of exams. Some of them do still have a reasonable amount of coursework that you can do as part of your qualification and that will count towards your final grade. And those ones are shown on the screen now. So if you're interested in art, construction, design and technology, drama, business enterprise, health and social care, hospitality and catering, IT, which is called Creative High Media, Media Studies, Music or GCSE PE. If you're interested in any of those, then you'll need to know that actually quite a bit of that qualification is graded based on your practical ability. In addition to those that I've just mentioned, there is vocational courses too. So these, sometimes called BTECs for example, so these are equivalent to GCSE, but they are delivered in a slightly different way. They are more practical in their nature and they are assessed in different ways as well. And you'll get some information about these from the options booklet that we put together for you. Now, before we get on to the really technical stuff, I need to do a quick swap. So I'm going to pass over to the person who knows what he's talking about when it comes to options. Now, Mr. McIntyre has been working with you, as I said, before Christmas, and he's started this conversation off with you, and I know that he's been speaking to some of you online or via phone calls over the past few weeks as well. So I'm going to pass over to Mr. McIntyre. He's going to take my place here and he'll talk us through the next few slides. So I'll come back later on. Mr. McIntyre, it's over to you.
And through the wonders of modern technology, I'm going to talk to you now about the options process. Okay, so the options grid. What you'll note from the slide that you can see on the screen is the word final draft. It should say final grid, but we've put the word draft in there because when your option choices have been submitted, we've still got a bit of work to do to ensure that the grid works for as many students as possible. Mr. Kelly will refer back to that a little bit later, but I do want to emphasise the final draft grid. And as you can see on the slide, there are 25 subjects. At the start of the process, when I recorded my first video that I posted on the website, I said we would end up with 24 subjects. It may well still be 24, it may be 25, again, depending upon how this grid works for the growing year group that we've got at Anthony Gell in current year 9. So there's 141 students. When I first started at Anthony Gell, there was 107 students in year 9. So we are trying to accommodate more students and ensuring that the broad, balanced curriculum that we offer at Anthony Gell works for as many students as possible. Now again, in that previous video, I emphasised to you that every year there are a small number of students that are disappointed because I hear very often say, I haven't got all my option choices. We do try to accommodate as many student choices as possible, but that is impossible with 4 option blocks, 6 subjects or maybe 7 subjects in one particular block and 140 students. So every year there is flexibility required, there is an element of compromise required, and we work very closely with parents and students to get the best possible combination of subjects that work for your son or daughter's GCSEs. So there's 4 blocks, blocks A, B, C and D, and what you'll be looking to do is make one choice from each of those 4 blocks. Now this grid has developed, and this grid is developed based upon student feedback. It's student choice. It's not me and Mr. Kelly sitting there back in September and saying we really want to have 3 groups of history. There's 3 groups of history on there because there are a sufficient number of students that warrant 3 groups, because we're not going to have group sizes of 35, 36, 37, 38. We just can't teach adequately to those group sizes. So when there's a subject with more than one group, it's because it's a popular subject for this particular year group, and it does vary from year to year. Now, the flip side of that is there are subjects there with just the one group, which is an adequate group size, and that can vary from the low teens up to the high 20s. Now, unfortunately, we have to make tough decisions every year relating to groups that we have to deem not to be viable, i.e. there aren't enough students that wish to take that subject for us to be able to run it. But there's lots of factors that we have to take into account, including the finances of those particular groups. So, looking at the grid, what you may well notice for some of you that since the previous draft grid is German is now not on the grid. Unfortunately, that has fallen into the category of not enough students wanting to take German forward into their GCSE choices. But we will work with those parents prior, and you've probably already been contacted prior to watching this video, of the fact that that change has been made, and I do apologise, but like I said, this grid is developed on making it work for the vast majority of students to get as many of their choices and their pathways sorted for their Key Stage 4. So, one of those choices has to be an EBacc subject. Now, Leslie Seister, our Senko, has already been in touch with a number of parents where we feel it would be better for those students to take a slightly modified curriculum, and Mr. Kelly referred to it earlier on, the PDE course, which is a continuation from the Year 8 and Year 9 course that we currently do at this moment in time. So hopefully you've already had a conversation with Dr. Seister relating to taking PDE, and it might well be for your child that they don't have to take that EBacc choice, but that is a very, very small number of students. And the EBacc suite of subjects that are now available, because as I've just said, German is not available, is computer science, French, geography and history. And can I just emphasise, again Mr. Kelly mentioned it earlier on, that religious studies does not count as an EBacc choice or EBacc subject, but it is obviously on our grid and it is freely available to those who wish to do it. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is choosing 3 other suitable subjects from the grid, and they are listed on the screen. And we are very pleased that we're able to offer a broad curriculum. We're very pleased that we're able to offer 4 option choices for your children. In other schools that's not the case. In some schools 3, and in some schools there's 2 option choices available. So we're very proud of the fact that Anthony Gell offers those 4 option choices. Now, you can choose multiple EBaccs. So for example, I've said on the previous slide you have to pick 1. That's as a minimum. If you really wanted to take history, French and geography, and it works on the grid, then that's fine. There's not a problem taking more than 1 EBacc subject, and that works for a small percentage of our students. That being said, we are big supporters of the arts at Anthony Gell, and I hope you appreciate the fact that there are 3 art subjects listed on the options grid. So your son or daughter could take art, they could take drama, they could take music. Again, if that works on the grid with your child's other choice, the 4th choice, then feel free to pick that combination of subjects if you feel that is what your son or daughter would enjoy over the course of the 2 years of Key Stage 4. If you've done that, then you will now have a choice in each block. 1 EBacc subject as a minimum, plus 3 others. Now, the thumbnails that you can see on this screen are from the Year 9 Virtual Open Evening webpage, and each of the subject teachers in the subjects that are shown on the screen that appear in the grid have compiled a short video outlining the key factors that they think are important that you need to know about their subject and what works for the students that historically have taken their subjects. And although, for example, the eagle-eyed amongst you might see that sociology is shown for the first time, again broadening our offer at Anthony Gell, the teachers that teach sociology have taught sociology in other schools, so they come with that experience and they feed that into those videos. So please, although you might have already had a detailed discussion with your son or daughter, I implore you to maybe just troll through some of those video clips just to get a refresher in your mind as to what the modern version of these subjects have to offer for your son or daughter. It might be useful, particularly if you have some difficult decisions and some compromises that are needed if there are some clashes for your son or daughter. And they are relatively short, and as well as the videos that we've compiled, the option booklet with the subject information sheets are a really good source of information, particularly in the absence of you being able to talk directly to the teachers about the subjects that you or your children are interested in.
Thanks, Mr. McIntyre. I told you he was good, didn't I? That was a one take. So Mr. McIntyre's worked on curriculum for a number of years now and has been devising a curriculum, as he says, that's suitable for Anthony Gell. But you've probably worked out by now that the offer differs every single year. So what your timetable for year 10 looks like here, each year, is different because it depends very much on the year group coming through. Because Mr. McIntyre, as he said, works on your choices. You've told him what you want to do in an ideal world. He's put together an option block for you that works for the vast majority of children. As I said earlier, we would love to be able to provide you with an independent timetable just for you that was bespoke, that was individualised, but no school can do that. There will have to be potentially some compromises, I know that, but you've got that range there still to choose from. I'm going to talk to you in a few minutes about how you should make your choices, about what you should consider, and potentially what you shouldn't consider as well when you're making these choices. You've still got some time, and I'll talk to you also about how long you've got in order to make those decisions before letting us know your final decisions. Now, I've kept this slide up here because I knew your teachers would want me to do this for as long as possible because they really like what they look like on these thumbnail pictures here, and they're really proud of their achievements in creating these videos. So please, as Mr. McIntyre said, make the most of the fact that they've done these for you. They're online, have a look at them, and add those to the information that you've got from the options booklet that we've given you already. And you've hopefully got lots of information there to be able to make those informed choices. Now, things to consider. Obviously, you've got to think about things that you've got an interest in. You're going to be committing a lot of time to this. The average GCSE we give 5 hours to every single fortnight, so we operate a 2-week timetable, as you know. And every fortnight, 5 hours of your time is committed to doing that GCSE, that subject. So why, if you get a choice, why choose something you're not interested in? So choose things that interest you, that you want to commit to, because we'll be asking you to work hard when you're on these GCSEs. Your teachers will expect that of you, so choose things that you're really interested in doing. Play to your skills, play to your own talents. You're all different. You've all got different strengths and different abilities, so make the most of those. Choose things that are going to be good for you. Think also about where you want to go, ultimately. Now I know that very few of you will be sat there with a career plan mapped out. It's incredibly unusual for somebody aged 14 or 15 to know where they're headed to in great detail. And things will change. Your plans will change, undoubtedly. But if you've got a rough idea as to the sort of things that you might like to do as you move through education and into employment, then think about that when you're thinking about your GCSEs. It's not crucial. I ended up being a PE teacher and I didn't do an O-level as it was then or an A-level in PE, and I went on to do a degree in PE. So it isn't essential that you do everything that you would hope to do at GCSE. It's not essential and it won't restrict your career to a certain extent. But do think, if you've got some ideas about what it is you want to do in the future, bear that in mind. Try and get a balance. As I said, 5 hours every fortnight is going to be spent on one subject area. And if you've got several subject areas that are very similar, you're going to be doing an awful lot of time doing similar things. And striking a bit of a balance in your timetable as it looks over the 2 weeks is probably a good idea. Give yourself some variety, give yourself some changes, so you're not doing necessarily theory work all of the time. You can break it up with a bit of practical perhaps. But that's up to you to decide, but it's a consideration. Think also about how it's assessed too. If all of your exams are on all of your qualifications are based on exams at the end of the 2-year period, that's going to put quite a bit of pressure on you. Now, some of you will cope really well with that, and that's exactly what you'll want to do. But others of you won't cope as well, and perhaps it's better for you to split how you're assessed and split how your grades are given over the course of the 2 years, if you can. So think about that. This is in red, because you don't base your choices on this. You don't base your choices on the teacher that you've got now, or that you had last year, or that you think you might get next year. Please don't do that. Your GCSE choices, your BTEC choices, should not depend on the teacher. Why? Well, teachers change. I can't guarantee who will be your teacher next year. And it could be that you've got a different teacher to the one that you've got now, or the one that you really, really like. So please don't base it on the teacher. More importantly, don't base it on what your friends are choosing. They're choosing what they want to do because it suits them. It's good for them. It might not be good for you. So each year, I say this to year 9s, don't do it. Each year, one, maybe 2 of them do it, and they choose the wrong subjects for them purely on their friendship or their friendship group, and they regret it. And even just a few weeks in, they're going to Mr. McIntyre, coming to me and saying, I need to change, I made a mistake. So please don't do that. Choose things for you. Don't choose things because your friend decided that it was good for them. So next, it's important just to talk about the process, about what's going to happen over the next few weeks and how this all starts to fit together. So, as you know, you started with this before Christmas. Those of you that were in school at the time, which is the people who I'm talking to now under the age of about 20, you worked with Mr. McIntyre and you started to have a conversation with him about the sort of things that you wanted to have as options for your GCSEs and your BTECs. And Mr. McIntyre was able to work with you and to start to create a grid for you to start to choose subjects from. All of that was happening before Christmas, and all of that is an important part of the process that we're doing now. We then get to this point in time, the options evening as would ordinarily be. For this, it's an opportunity for us to give you more information, to present to you the finalised grid, and for you to be able to spend more time thinking things through and thinking about individual subjects maybe a little bit more. So that's the point we're at in this process. After this, we're going to be asking you to complete your final draft options grid. Now, the wording of that's important. Draft means it's not confirmed, it's not your final confirmed grid. But it is your final attempt to put choices down and to give us that information. I need that from you on or before Friday the 12th of February. And what Mr. McIntyre will then be able to do is be able to start to put together a series of interviews for you. Because we think it's important that we don't just stop that process at that point. We think it's important to give young people who are Anthony Gel a chance to be able to have a one-to-one with a senior member of staff about their choices. Now, we would normally do this here in school, and it would normally be the students and the member of staff talking to each other. One of the advantages, I guess, of doing this online and virtual this year is that parents and carers may want to be involved in those conversations as well, and it may be that we can arrange for that to happen in some or most cases. So there's a chance there for a short conversation with a member of staff here in school about your choices, to look through your final draft and to agree on how it should be, to say whether or not there's any changes that would be recommended, or to confirm the choices that you've put in. So we'll have those conversations with you, but we'll just be doing them online this year because of the situation we're in. Now, once you've done those conversations, we will have analysed your choices with you, we'll have discussed the various options with you, and we'll confirm with you what your final grid looks like. And those then get worked up by Mr. McIntyre into a timetable. And that's no easy feat. He needs to take all of your options and create a timetable for next year, a timetable that works. Now, he needs a bit of time to do this, but we're hoping that just after Easter we'll be able to get back to you with the final confirmed choices for next year. Now, you might be sat there thinking, I'm a bit worried about this, or you might even be a little bit stressed by this, and that's fairly natural because it's a big thing, and it's the first time probably in your education career that you've had some choices. Up till now, the teachers or the schools have told you what you're doing. This is the first time you've got that choice. And as soon as you introduce an element of choice into something, it can create a sense of worry, a sense of anxiety. And we understand that, but it's important that you realise that as long as you have a wide variety of choices at this stage, as long as your timetable continues to be broad and balanced, which it will be, then it won't limit you in the future. And you might be spending a long time right now worrying about, do I do this subject or do I do that subject? Do what you want, do what you're advised to do. Because at this stage, you're still doing a large number of different subjects. You are not going to be blocking off options for later in life at this stage. You've still got pathways ahead of you that you'll be able to choose, regardless of what subjects you pick at this stage. Be confident in the knowledge that your timetable, your curriculum in year 10 and year 11 will be suited to you, and it will be broad enough to be able to give you choices later on. That's why we do this. That's why we offer what we offer. And also, you know that you've got support here, and you've got support with other people too, that you'll be able to use, and that will help. And that will help you to get to the point that you need to be before the start of year 10. Choose things that you're interested in, choose things that you want to commit to, choose things that you're good at, and you'll have a timetable that you really enjoy, and you'll go on and you'll be even more successful. You know where we are, you know you can get in touch with us between now and those deadlines, and you know that we'll be here to try to help you to make the decisions, the best decisions you can. In the meantime, look at the information that we put online for you, talk to people about the choices that you're thinking, and then make those decisions. We wish you all the very best. We hope that very soon you'll be back here in school with us and we can be doing things more like normal again. And up until then, stay safe, take care, look after yourselves, and we'll look forward to the day when you're back with us again properly. All the best from me and all the best from Mr. McIntyre.